Thank you once again for the opportunity, and thank you everyone for coming from everywhere where you have joined from. And the honor that we are going to do is called God's Messenger. Is one of the interesting honors that we have within our ministry. And I would ask you to have a pen and a paper somewhere to write, where you need to keep some notes. If you have any questions, also feel free to ask just at the end of the presentation. It's not going to be a very long presentation, but it has very good and interesting information that you will find. So to start off with, the honor we are doing is called God's Messenger. Now, the God Messenger honor is an exciting new honor that was introduced at the Oshkosh Pathfinder Camporee. That was in 2014. The God Messenger honor introduces you to the basic facts of the life of Ellen G. White. It also covers a range of types of books she wrote and explores what inspiration is and how a prophet can be tested from the Bible. So at the end of this honor, what we would like you to be able to do is to be able to check in the Bible the qualities of a prophet, what God says a prophet does, and to also check, because we believe that Ellen G. White was a prophet who was inspired by God. So we can also do the test on the things that she said and the things that happened in her life, so that we can see if she was a prophet who was inspired by God. Now, something interesting about Ellen G. White is that Ellen and her twin sister Elizabeth were born to Robert and Eunice Hammond. That was on November 26 in 1827. So most of us don't even know that she had a twin sister. So her twin sister was Elizabeth. And remember this date, it was 26 November 1827 when she was born, right, in the little town of Gorham, Maine, US. Their father, Robert Hammond, was a hat maker before her marriage. Her mother was a school teacher. So the mother of Ellen G. White was a school teacher and the father was a hat maker. Those are interesting facts that we find. Now we know that after the family moved to Portland, Maine, an awful thing happened to Ellen. Right. So one day the girls on their way home from school, an older schoolmate threw a big rock that hit Ellen's nose. She was left disfigured, and for the rest of her life, she suffered from recurring health problems, including nervousness, tremors, dizziness. Her dad was away at the time when this happened, and when he came back, he was not even able to fully recognize his own child because of the disfigurement that had happened. So that is something that we learn about her life. Now we also know that the Hammonds, they were Methodists, and in 1840, when Ellen was 12, she attended a church camp meeting where she devoted her life to God. She was baptized and became a member of the Methodist Church. She and her family later heard William Miller preach and believed that Jesus would come back soon. Now, because of this, their family was dismissed from the Methodist. So you remember that when she was 12 years old, that when she decided to give a heart to the Lord. And that the reason why they left the Methodist Church is because they had heard the preachings of William Miller about the second coming of Jesus Christ. Now, we also find that Ellen was serious about helping her friends to prepare for Jesus' coming. So Ellen, she even knitted socks and she was selling them at 25 cents a pair to raise money to donate for pamphlets to be printed out about Jesus' soon return that people could give away. So she was so serious about salvation such that she even did work with her own hands to knit some pairs of socks and sell just so that papers can be printed and people can be made aware that Jesus will be coming very soon. Right, but as we know, Jesus didn't come in 1844, and this led to what we know as the Great Disappointment that happened in the year 1844. So this is also a very important date to always remember, that in 1844, Jesus did not come as they thought he was going to come, and there was the Great Disappointment. Now, her first vision was about the journey of the Advent people to the New Jerusalem. So Ellen felt that Jesus understood how sad they all were, and he still loved them, and that they would soon understand that he really is coming without warning. She would go into a trance and which began when she shouted, "Glory, glory, glory." So every time she had a vision, she would say glory 3 times, right? So that used to happen a lot to Ellen G. White each time she was going into a vision. Now, Ellen's daytime trances stopped and her visions occurred in nighttime dreams. So there is a time when she used to have visions during the day, like when she would say glory 3 times. And then there came a time when the day visions ended, and then she started to have the visions at night, and she also started to have the visions even in the form of dreams. So that is what was happening to her. Right, and then we also ask what really happened to Ellen G. White in her life. We know that Ellen married a person by the name of James White in 1846. So Ellen got married to James White. That is one you must also remember, in 1846. Right, so there was no white wedding or white dress during that time, and they were not even married in a church, you see. So this is just a resemblance of a wedding, but during that time, they didn't even have all those dresses and things like that. Now, James White, the husband of Ellen White, was a former Millerite preacher, believing that people needed to be told about Jesus. And because the newlyweds were so poor that they had to live for a while with Ellen's parents, they had no money to spend on a wedding for themselves. So when they got married, even James was very, very poor. You know, they didn't even have money even for themselves. Now, that is Ellen G. White and the husband, James. You can see them there, an old photo. And then soon after their marriage, James and Ellen White accepted the Bible truth of the seventh-day Sabbath after reading a pamphlet written by the retired sea captain Joseph Bates. So this is when they accepted the truth about the Sabbath. And then the Whites were poor. Preachers in the Advent movement were not paid a salary. So James White divided his time between preaching and earning a living in the forest, on the railroad, or in the hayfield. In 1847, Henry was born to the Whites. So we are now being told about their children who got born to the family. And there you have the picture of Joseph Bates, whose pamphlet they read. So we now have the first child that Ellen and Joseph had, and that was the child name is called Henry. And then after Henry was born, we also have another one, Edson, who grew up and began missionary work in the southern United States with a boat. So that is Henry for you. And then his boat was called the Morning Star, that he used to sail to different places as a missionary to go with the message of the gospel. And there you see it, that is the Morning Star that he was using it. And then we also have William, or Willie. grew up to become a pastor, administrator, and Ellen White's assistant. So also you can see that the children were heavily involved with the message of the cross. And there you have Willie. And then you also have another one, the fourth child. The name is John Herbert. He died when he was just a few weeks old, right? And then Henry, on his deathbed, the first one that we talked about, asked that he be not buried in Toshpan, where they were at the moment, and then he wanted to be buried where his brother was buried before, that was in Battle Creek. And the reason why he wanted to be buried there, he said, I don't want my brother to be alone during the resurrection when Christ comes. So he wanted to be with his brother should he die. So he said, please, when I die, bury me next to my brother. Right. And then there is the place where John Herbert was put to rest, and he was just 12 weeks and 1 day when he died. Now, we are still looking at the life of Ellen G. White. Now, in her first years of marriage, Ellen White wrote and traveled widely to visit Adventist believers. So in 1855, the Whites moved to Battle Creek, that is in Michigan, where church members built a little printing house. So later, a big hospital called a sanitarium would be built in Battle Creek, as well as a school that grew into a college. So that is the work that was done in Battle Creek. As you can see, the building that is built there, it was also built into more advanced, and Battle Creek grew to be something of great significance. Now, the church's name was chosen in 1860. So that we have to also remember that in the year 1860, the church's name was chosen, that is the Seventh-day Adventist. And in May of 1863, the General Conference of the Seventh-day Adventist Church was officially organized. And several local conferences were organized. Right. James White worked very hard helping the Seventh-day Adventists work grow. He was very busy helping to get books printed, including those written by Ellen White. James and Ellen White also traveled and preached a lot. James White also helped raise money to enlarge the Battle Creek Sanitarium. So he raised the money for the big church in Battle Creek that was called Dime Tabernacle. Right, the reason why it was called the Dime Tabernacle was it was named the Dime Tabernacle because everyone was asked to donate a dime a month for a year towards building. So you see, sometimes these building projects that we have, they didn't start with us. And you see, during this time, they asked to donate a dime a month. So each person was contributing maybe the value of, we can say in today's currency, it can be maybe 100 Rand a month. So each person donates 100 Rand a month for a whole year, and you have a building that stands up. And you can see how magnificent the building that stood up after people were contributing a dime a month for a whole year. So we can also benefit from that as a church by learning that. Right, and then in the year 1881, remember this one as well, in the year 1881, James White died at the age of 60. So there you have James White, and then at the age of 60, that is when he died. Now, after James died, Willie White helped his mother with printing and traveling work. And in 1885, Ellen White was asked to go as a missionary to help the church's work in Europe. So remember this year again, 1885, Ellen White went as a missionary in Europe. Now, that is just a map of where she would also go as a missionary. She would go from place to place. There she's in France there. Right, so now for 2 years, she lived in Basel, in Switzerland. And here we have a photograph of the Basel publishing house. Ellen White was asked to go as a missionary to help in Australia. So there is the house that we have in Basel that was also built where she worked as a missionary. And then she made trips to England, to Germany, France, Italy, Denmark, Norway, and Sweden. Back again in the United States, she made a home at Healdsburg, California. There she finished the 1888 edition of the Great Controversy. So you can also remember that when she was back in the United States, that is where she finished the work of the Great Controversy, the 1888 edition. And then in 1891, Ellen White was asked to go as a missionary to help in Australia. So she was already on the move, and she was moving from place to place, and you can actually see there is Australia where she went as a missionary there. And then when she was in Australia, there she helped to start what is called the Avondale College. The Avondale College in Australia was started there by Ellen G. White. And then when she was there also, you can see that's the college, the Avondale College. So while she was there, she lived near the school in a house named the Sunny Side. So when she was in Australia, the house that she lived in was called the Sunny Side, all right? And then something also that is very interesting, while she was still there, one day in the year 1900, Ellen White surprised her family and the people who worked with her by telling them that God had instructed her to leave Australia and to return to America. So back in the United States, Ellen White settled near the town of St. Helena in California. She named her home Elms Haven. So that's also something to remember. When she went back, the house that she lived in, she named it Elms Haven. And you can see that is the house that she lived in, and it's called Elms Haven. Right, so she encouraged the General Conference and the local conference to reorganize so that they could do better work for God. She also wanted Adventists not to huddle all together at Battle Creek, but to move to different places so that they could witness for God. So she encouraged the Review and Herald Publishing Association, as well as the General Conference offices, to move to Washington, D.C. So you can see that in her life, she was not really about gathering together, but she wanted the message of God to be spread out through the world so that everyone can actually receive the message of salvation. So she was writing to the General Conference. And then in the year 1909, at the age of 81, Ellen White attended her last General Conference. So the last General Conference session that Ellen White attended was in 1909. Now, at the conference, she spoke a number of times in a clear, firm voice. At the close of her last presentation to the delegates from around the world, she held out a Bible in her aged hands, and she said, "Brethren and sisters, I commend to you this book." So please remember these words. These were her last words at the conference. She said, "Brethren and sisters, I commend to you this book." Remember that. So those are the words that she said. And then also realizing that she did not have much longer to live, Ellen White returned to Elms Haven, where she worked hard on finishing several important books. And on February 13, 1915, she was entering her study at Elms Haven, and then she tripped and she fell. and when she fell, she broke her hip, and she couldn't walk anymore from there. So this happened in 1915 on the 13th of February. And then she couldn't walk anymore and gradually grew weaker and weaker. Now, during the last months of her life, her words to friends and relatives were cheerful. She knew that she had faithfully done her best to be God's messenger. Her last words were, "I know in whom I have believed." So, you know, even when people were coming to see her, when she couldn't walk and she was constantly getting weaker and weaker every day, she still managed to say, "I know whom I have believed." So these words are very important for us to always remember as we will carry on. Right. Now, we are going to be looking at the tests of a prophet according to the Bible and according to what we know. So we test the prophets by comparing what they say with what the Bible says. A true prophet will never contradict the Bible. And this we find in the book of Isaiah chapter 8, verse 20, which says, "To the law and to the testimony, if they speak not according to this word, it is because there is no light in them." So we are living in days where there are many prophets that say a lot of things. So for you to be able to know if a prophecy is from God, you need to test it with the Bible. If they say something that is contradicting with the Bible, you know that these people are not from God. So it is very important for us to remember that. That is test number one. And then test number two. This test takes a long time because it is about fruit. Right, as fruit doesn't ripen overnight, by seeing the prophet character and watching what results come from the messages, we can see if the person is drawing others to God, to God's ways, or leading them in the wrong direction. So this test, we find it in Matthew chapter 7, verse 15 to 20. So it says, "Beware of false prophets, which come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravening wolves. Ye shall know them by their fruits. Do men gather grapes of thorns or figs from thistles? A good tree cannot bring forth evil fruit, neither can a corrupt tree bring forth good fruit. Every tree that bringeth not forth good fruit is hewn down and cast into the fire. Wherefore, by their fruits you shall know them." So this test tells us that we can look at the fruit and we will know them. So you sometimes read in the newspaper and hear what these people of God have done. And if you see that someone who is called a man of God has done something that is wrong, that person is not inspired by God, is not a prophet of God, and is not used by God. Most of the people are there just for the money. And then we have another test number 3. Right. Test number 3, we get it from the book of Jeremiah chapter 28, verse 9, which says, "The prophet which prophesieth of peace, when the word of the prophet shall come to pass, then the prophet be known that the Lord hath truly sent him." So the predictions that the prophet says must come to pass. Whatever they say, it must come to pass. So when God gives a prophet a message, that message should be fulfilled because it's God who has said it. Right. Now, you will see that sometimes you have a problem because Jonah was sent to Nineveh and he was told in 40 days Nineveh is going to be destroyed. But Nineveh was not destroyed. That was the message that Jonah preached. The reason why Nineveh was not destroyed was because the people repented and God did not destroy them. So we must always look into the Bible and see what happened to the prediction. Did it come true? Right. And sometimes even if predictions come true and we do the other test and a person does not meet the other test, we know that they are not sent by God. Now, also a true prophet believes and teaches that Jesus is fully God and also completely human, and that he came and lived and died for us. True prophets love Jesus and make uplifting Jesus the most important part of their lives and their work. So that we get from John chapter 4, verse 1 to 3. That is the text number 4. So it says, beloved, believe not every spirit, but try the spirits, whether they are of God, because many false prophets are gone out into the world. Hereby know ye the Spirit of God. Every spirit that confesseth that Jesus Christ is come in the flesh is of God. And every spirit that confesseth not that Jesus Christ came in the flesh is not of God. And this is that spirit of Antichrist. Wherefore ye have heard it should come, and even now already it is in the world. So even the time of this writing, the Antichrists were there, the false prophets were there. So they applied these tests to many people, many prophets, and they were proven to be false prophets. So if anyone calls themselves a messenger of God and they do not accept that Jesus Christ lived as a person and Jesus Christ was fully God, that person is not coming from God. And the Bible tells us that we must test every spirit. Now, what is interesting, from the earliest days of the Advent movement, millions of people have studied the life and the messages of Ellen G. White and checked these with the Bible tests to see if she was a true prophet. And the results, Ellen White passed the test of a true prophet. So all the tests that happened, Ellen White got an A+. She met all the requirements. Now, I just want to know, we have people that are watching in 2s, right? And in 3s. Right. So if you are watching in 2s and in 3s, I want us to do something that is interesting now. Those that are watching in 2s and in 3s, I want one of you to close the eyes. And if you are watching on your own, I also want you to close your eyes for now. Right, this is just something that we are going to do. If you are watching on your own, close your eyes. If you are watching the two of you, one of you close the eyes and one of you keep your eyes open. Right. One of you keep your eyes open, and the one who's keeping their eyes open, I just want you to look at the screen for a few seconds. If your eyes are open, look at the screen. If your eyes are closed, let them remain closed. Right, you have seen that. Now, I want all of you to open your eyes now. It's fine. Right, you can open your eyes now. So, one that was opening their eyes when I put a picture on the screen, can you just describe what you saw? I want one person that can describe what they saw.
You can unmute yourself to talk.
Right. Anyone who was opening their eyes, what did you see? You saw a prophet. Okay, that's good. Anyone else? Can you describe the picture that you saw?
Yes, Uncle Chenge. I saw a man in white clothing and there were like lamps in front of him.
A man in white clothing and lamps in front of him. Okay, that's great. Anyone else that wants to describe?
Yes, the man was moving in between the lamps.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much for that. Now, whilst we are doing that, now I want you to do something else now. You've got your piece of paper with you. I want you to write these numbers. Can you write number 2? Write number 6. Write number 4. Write capital letter A. Write number 8. Write small letter B. And write number 3. Right. Who understands what they have written on their paper? What do you understand? Why did you write that? Let me ask.
Instructed us.
Because I instructed you to write, but you don't know the reason why you wrote those numbers, right?
No.
Great. Now,
No.
I'm going to be talking about inspiration. So inspiration, what God uses, the first thing that we are talking about is the inspiration of God, how God uses inspiration. So the picture that I showed the first time was that. So I gave the people the picture and I asked them to explain. And they all explained according to how they understood the picture, right? And this is how inspiration works. God gives a person a picture, and then the person expresses the picture in the ways that they understand themselves. So God does not use what is called verbal inspiration, where he tells you what to write exactly. Like God did not say to John, write these words, exactly these words, you know. He did not say to Paul, write exactly these words, but he gave them inspiration so they could see what message God wanted to put across, and they could think about it and then write it in the language that people would understand. So we call this thought inspiration. So God inspires the thought. The prophet then uses his own or her own words to tell others God's messages. Something like what many of you did when you described the picture. Right. So that is the method that God uses when it comes to inspiration. He uses what is called thought inspiration. Right. And then we come to the next item that we have. Right. When Ellen White was in a vision, that is in the vault at the White Estate, you will find that there is a book that is in the General Conference, right? It is a special book. It is the Hammond Bible. It's a family Bible that they had. And at her parents' home in early 1845, Ellen, who was only 17 years at that time, held the large Bible in vision in her left hand, with her arm outstretched parallel to the floor for about 30 minutes. The Hammond Family Bible weighs 18.5 pounds, which is like 8 kgs. So imagine a small girl, 17 years of age, she was holding something that weighs 8 kgs in her hand while she was in vision. So for 30 minutes, most of us cannot even do that. 30 minutes in one hand, even 2 minutes to hold a 5 kg, that would be very, very tiring for us. But she managed to do that. So a Bible that big, she managed to hold it in her hands. Now, she was about maybe 157 centimeters, weighing about maybe 40 kgs at that time. And you can actually see that the strength that she had to hold that Bible was not coming from her, but it was something supernatural that was happening to her, so that she managed to actually hold that Bible. So remember that the Bible was 18.5 pounds, 8 kgs. So remember that one. It's a very important thing to remember, right? And then we also find something that Ellen G. White always used to talk about the writings that she had. She said, the Lord has given a lesser light to lead men and women to the greater light. So remember this statement, always her writings are always to refer us and to point us to the Bible. So we should read her writings with the Bible. So she encourages us to read the Bible and to read her writings. So her writings are not above the Bible, but her writings are to complement the Bible so that we can understand much better when we read the Bible. Now, in December of 1844, God gave young Ellen the first of about 2,000 visions and prophetic dreams. When Ellen White did a lot of writing, after she published her first book in 1851, she went to write many articles, books, and little pamphlets, because all 2,000 visions and dreams would take far too long to tell you about. I'm going to just tell you about just a few of them. All right, so these are some of the writings that you find of Ellen G. White, and these ones are put in simple English so that people can actually understand, and you can still even get them today. So the series, one of the series is called Conflict of the Ages, Beginning of the End. So you can have Conflict of the Ages today with great controversy, patriarchs and prophets, books like that. So you will find this one, Beginning of the End, is one of the books that are found in a series. And then another one is called Royalty and Ruin, that you also find. That's one of the books. The other one is The Humble Hero. You can also get that one. And then the other one is Unlikely Leaders. So these are books that are in simplified English, and children like Pathfinders can actually read and be able to understand these books. Now, we find out that now in 1863, the Seventh-day Adventist Church was officially organized. That is in 1863. And then healthcare at that time was not very known. The people were not very healthful because doctors during that time, they used to prescribe even cigarettes that people to clean their lungs, they needed to take cigarettes. And you would know that people didn't bath as often that time. So they would always bath maybe once in weeks or even once a month. People would take a bath once every month. You can think about that. Imagine taking a bath once every month. I don't know how these guys were living. And then they also didn't know about the healthful diet and used a lot of fat in their food. There were some strange ideas about air too. So people believed that at night the air was poisonous, and they tried to close everything up tight at night so that polluted air does not get inside the house. This is how people were living during that time. So you will find out that in 1875, Ellen White was given an important vision showing her the Seventh-day Adventist Church work to broaden and develop not only in the United States but overseas. And they also did quite a lot of printing, and the health message also came in. And then, like many years later in 1891, she visited a printing press in Melbourne, Australia. And she recognized the room and the people that were there because she had seen them in her vision in 1875. So just think about this. She had a vision in 1875. She goes to Melbourne and she sees the exact same place and the exact same people that were there. Right, very interesting. Then Mrs. White found time to write thousands of pages of counsel and articles for the Review and Science and Youth Instructor in 1898. While living in a Sunnyside home in Australia, Ellen White finished writing the book Desire of Ages. That is in 1898. Right, and then we go to the next one. This is the place where she later on went to. Right, and then she returned to her place. We have shown this place before. So on returning to her place in the United States in the 1900s, she settled back in Elms Haven in California. And then she spent 15 years of her life in book preparation, writing and encouraging others to remain true to God. Right, and then This date is very important. July 16, 1915 in California, Elms Haven. Ellen G. White, at the age of 87, she died. And she was buried beside her husband and sons in Battle Creek in Michigan. So the benefits that you find in reading the books of Ellen G. White is that it makes the Bible reading more fun, and it helps you to make sense of what really is going on in the world. You get excited about the second coming. It gives you advice for relationships, provides principles for having a better life, show you what things are worth being while being involved with. So that is some of the important things of reading the books of Ellen G. White. So the token that we are just doing is called God's Messenger. That is the patch that you will get when passing the honor. So Ellen G. White was considered as God's messenger, and she always considered herself as God's messenger. That's why we are doing this honor. And for this honor, we are going to do it in a very interesting way. We are all going to play a game. Right, this game, you can play it online, you can play it on your phone, either Android or Apple. You can play this game. It's called Pitcairn. Right, so you can find it on Google Play Store or on Apple Store. Right, so what you simply need to do, this is the history of the game Pitcairn. I'm not going to go into the history of it, but you can always read on the game. It gives you the history of the game. And all you need to do is to play the game. So there is the link that you can find. I will send you the link as well, so that even on your device, you can click that link and play the game. If you want to download the game, it's called Pitcairn, that you can find in Android Play Store. And then you can also find that in the Apple Play Store. That is how it looks like. So you can download it and begin to play the game. Now, I'm just going to give you a quick run through the game. So what you need to do in the game is you need to gather enough money to launch the Pitcairn. There is the ship, the Pitcairn, that you need to launch. And then when you start playing the game, all you need to do is to follow the instructions. You need to earn 200 points within 7 minutes in order to launch the Pitcairn and earn your Pathfinder honor. So once you begin to play, the light colored questions earn you points, the dark colored questions give you tokens. So you can press on the redeem tokens to use your tokens. You can trade your tokens for more time, a risk question in which you will win or lose points, or you can buy an answer card. So all this you will find. I'm just giving you something that you can do as you play the game. Right. So as you pass the signpost, you get a world card which may give or take points, tokens, or time. Right. Answer cards are useful because they give you hints of answers that you need. So you can also be reading about that. Right. So the game begins and ends at the dock where the Pitcairn boat is being built. You can see how far you have to go by zooming in. You can have fun whilst playing this game. So the game Pitcairn is coming through, and that is one game that I played, and you can see there I played online. My score was 232, so it actually tells you that this is your score. So when you guys play, you must take a screenshot of the points that you have accumulated, and then you will send it to us, and then we can actually confirm that you have reached your points. Right, and then so you can click on the story to read about the story, and then you can click on the instructions to read the instructions, and then you can also click start, and then you can start playing the game. This is like one of the questions that comes through. When did Mrs. Ellen White die? We said it was on 16 July 1915. So already you know that there is a question like that, and that's the answer to the question. So you just select that. So the more you select the wrong answers, the more you are going to be losing points. You need to select the correct answer the first time, and you also need to redeem your tokens for you to get more points. Right, and then there is the map, and then you can zoom in. You just need to start from there, and you go all through and end there. And then this is one of the questions that comes like, what was the sign mentioned in Matthew 24, which occurred when Ellen was almost 6? That is the falling of stars. So I've given you the answer. You can see there is an answer card that is on the right there. So if I want to just peep and see what is in there, I will be able to see. When it's time for action, you can actually have your answer card, or you can have your risk question that gives you 15 points, or it can take away 15 from you. All right. And then this is one of the questions that comes through. It's a risk question. So it will ask you like, what did Ellen White especially enjoy? Then you have to find out more about such questions, because we don't know all about them, but they are in there. So for me, I found out that it was the lemon pie. So if this question comes, you know already that it is the lemon pie. But take the risk questions; it will also help you to get more points and have good points when you end. And then the test of a prophet. These are answer cards that come. We've already covered that in our presentation. So you always have those on your answer cards. And then it talks about her marriage in Europe and life in Europe. So it's also on the answer cards. When you are scrolling and playing the game, you can just see the answers and interesting facts about her life that are there. And then the action points, we did talk about that. So each game is always different because it gives you different action points, and you always score a different score tally if you play it. There are interesting questions that you'll find out, but well, let's play the game and see. Right, that is one of the questions that comes, and as you can see, I've got many answer cards of the tokens that I could redeem. So I've got a lot of answers waiting for me there. So if I am failing to get a good answer, I can actually have an answer. As you can see on the top, I have 220 points, and I still have 3 minutes and 17 seconds to go. So I can actually push my score way up if I manage to play it correctly. And then at the end of the game, when you finish, it will tell you that this is your points tally. So this is the screenshot that you need to take and be able to send to us. And then it will give you also something where you can complete your name and put in your details. But this thing, I think it has a bug. So once you have reached your score, please take a screenshot that you can send to us. And then when you have done that, we will send you a certificate that is signed to say you have successfully scored the exact number of points that you have scored in the game Pitcan, and then we'll give you a certificate that you can use to redeem your token at the end of the year, or whenever the year is open for redeeming our tokens for investiture. That is our presentation. Thank you very much. Any questions that you may have? It's open for questions. So you can also type a question if you have a question, and then we will attend to that. What can be the minimum points we can end the game? The minimum points that you need is 200. You have to score more than 200 for you to end the token. 200 points and above ends you the token. Right, any other question? Right, I'm just sending something right now on the chat. Right, just give me 1 second. I'll send you something right now on the chat. Right. So I'm going to be handing over back to Kahisho. And then whilst we are finalizing, this is just a document that is asking, we've got some other honors that we could also possibly give you guys and do with you guys online. So please fill in that quick survey, and let's see if you want to do some more honors online, and then we can arrange for you to attend those honors. This is especially for you Pathfinder children, those who did not manage to attend those honors. Kindly fill that, and even counselors and other people that are joining us, if you want to do that, kindly fill in that. I'm going to send it to the Pathfinder parents group as well, and to other contacts that we have here. Back to you, Kahisho. Right, the question was asked, how about if you don't have the game? The game is online, you can play it online. All you need to is to click the link that we are going to send, and you can play the game online.